The disturbing idea of redneck loan shark type with a revolver masquerading as a Christian warrior is deeply ingrained in our culture, particularly through Red Scare cinema. Films like Night of the Hunter, In the Heat of the Night. It's a dark calling. The KKK burned a cross in the name of their own Christianity, supposedly. And these types, which include a good number of organized black coalitions who derive a great deal of power and influence from their claim to Christianity, see it as an act of violence towards them if somebody goes their own way. The result is that reverse psychology is used by opposition characters, incorruptible anarchists, for example, who just dispense with the whole Christian theme, throw it away. It's an insult to their intelligence. It seems to me that one of the things that happens is that people are bullied by so-called Christians and then discover what the New Testament says and that a great deal of it makes sense and is a description of a dignified, resourceful, beautiful man who's tormented and abused and betrayed by unenlightened peers. And they forget that they were bullied and take up defense of the gospel. These Christians are often at odds with doctrinal Christians, mercenary Christians, dogmatic Christians, saying that the mentality of martial law that comes from dogmatic Christians, military Christianity, is at odds with the teachings of the gospel. It seems to me that Christian ethics at its best is practiced by law enforcement. In fact, Christian ethics can be practiced to good effect by a complete atheist. It had to do with chivalry, the Garden of Gethsemane, when the disciples, the apostles, wanted to defend their teacher from the Romans. And he told them not to concentrate instead on their reflections of understanding. Well, I want to address the dogmatic Christianity, the absolutism, the absurd entanglement of ethics per se with the fossil fuel nightmare cartoon known as the Book of Revelations, some sort of Godzilla tack-on from Hollywood's Tojo rivalry. It's a trump for Hollywood. And it's nauseatingly pro-oil wars. Anybody who thought that Ronald Reagan, with his underground nuclear blasts and decimation of Latin America, was a good Christian is sorely deluded. But let's look for a minute at the conditions that allowed this idea to arise and what it says about Hollywood's tactical manipulation of their diabolically obedient faithful. The Knights of Resignation on the march for the new Axis. Plumbing Gaza, you would think they would be saying when they're committing a genocide, a war against toddlers, which isn't very Christian, no matter what the Zionist monster Biden proclaims. It has to do with, comes out most vividly in Franklin Graham's epistle, something about rebel with a cause or something. He has a chaplain who he giggles was called Hitler for being proficient at executing innocent people for the Contras, who's in the cellular chaplain. You know, they say Jesus can forgive even Hitler in these quarters. And he calls himself Hitler. And then one day he changes his mind and he wants to be called Lazarus. And they say, why do you want to be called Lazarus? He says, because I'm back from the dead. So Hitler is back from the dead, and they all weep and embrace him as a Messiah of Jesus. This is topical animosity for anything other than the criminally insane. And Franklin Graham giggles his imprimatur on it while pedophiling a little boy like me with white phosphorus window pane from the laboratories of Mad Dr. Wattenmaker, an Attica State Prison psychiatrist who, among his legion, brags of Aaron Dixon of the Seattle Green Party. This is Hollywood's abuse of Christianity. And one of the things that happens when you abuse a philosophy is that you cease to understand it. For example, Ayn Rand abused her own philosophy. Her best character would have had nothing to do with her. He was a person who just wanted to get the job done, simply, effectively, and therein would lie its beauty. He was principled by light, air, and beauty, by the nobility of the human race, in a book called The Fountainhead. And people who misunderstand the message from The Fountainhead abuse that philosophy. They're like the people who reject Christianity out of hand. They really are. Someone once said, don't leave your conscience at the door. When you read anything, I might add. Now, some of us had thought and hoped, because of the attentive humanity of Robert Fripp of King Crimson, that somehow there was a check and balance in public discourse working its way through the entertainment media and legislative lobbies, as well as the educational establishment, which was meaningful and good and took cognizance of our commonwealth, our needs, our elderly, our children, our disabled, our minorities, our past, our present, and our future, without promoting ecocide. Turns out this wheelie little wiggler was promoting the idea of Lazarus as Hitler, Casper, the friendly ghost, Bly Sanders, and Lenin's absurd Houdini machine, which traces back to the days where D.W. Griffith would have lunch with Charlie Chaplin, the great dictator of the two X's. What we see in the legerdemain of these wigglers is a plot that began in Fayum counterfeiting through the age of the great dictators in Hollywood studio system. To them, they're doing the work of Jesus embalming an army of toddlers. Nothing could be further from the truth or more patently ridiculous. I say this as a human being. I don't need Christian ethics to see that it's hardly a form of chivalry.